lovely people, and welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to film another of my deck collection videos. My Tag Your It series. I'm really loving doing it. Today it's the turn of the decks that are inspired by place. So Genius Loci decks. The Celtic tradition for me is part of my heritage. And so therefore a lot of these decks are some of my most beautiful decks, my Celtic decks. But I've picked out a selection of tarot and oracle that for me embody Genius Loci and a sense of place. So we're going to start with the Green Witch Tarot by Anne Moira, because for me this deck does scream Genius Loci and place. It does feel very pagan, very Celtic, very much a part of the landscape that I grew up in, with beaches and sacred circles and cornfields and woodlands. So yeah, this does very much feel like part of my heritage and Genius Loci. I do absolutely love this deck. There's a nice balance in this deck between place and people, really, and yeah, I just love it. So I would tag it with the Celtic Oracle by John Matthews. This is a beautiful 40 card deck which I was very lucky to find secondhand. I mean, look at that orange and turquoise together. The book is absolutely fabulous, and it's just a really beautiful oracle. I just am obsessed with that colour way. This deck has got beautiful backs like this, absolutely stunning. I have a feeling that these two may possibly look fantastic together. Oh, I love those two together. Look at that. They've got a very Celtic feel, a very pagan feel. Look at those, that's fantastic. This deck is an absolute beauty to work with. Like I said, a lot of these decks I went on a mission to track them down, wanting to reconnect with my own personal heritage and do study around it. This was a labour of love trying to find these Celtic decks for me, and I was just so lucky time and time again to find them at really low prices. So it is possible to find these decks if you keep looking. I absolutely love these two together. I knew they would sing with each other, and they do. So that's the Green Witch Tarot with the first of the Celtic oracles, the John Matthews Oracle. And I say the first because there is another Celtic oracle coming in a little while. Okay, now I'm going to tag now this Celtic oracle with another much loved and sought after and tracked down deck of mine, the Celtic Wisdom Tarot. This is by Caitlin Matthews. This is out of print now, but I did put a search out for it, and I did manage to pick it up for less than £35, so it was an absolute bargain. The box is a little bit of a pain because it opens like this and the cards slide in there, so you have to separate the card pack and try and slide them down. So I keep my cards in a bag. So I keep it in this bag, which I picked up off Etsy, and in here you've got the backs. These are the backs, so the backs work really nicely together, and I haven't really worked with them really yet, not properly. The odd reading, flick through, reading the guidebook, lusting over the cards, of course. However, not a full work through because I've been working with other decks. So this is all on my radar for 2022, working with these beautiful Celtic decks that I've managed to track down. 2022, I'd also love to go to Ireland again. I've been to Ireland about 4 times, 4 or 5 times in my life. I've spent summers over there. I've toured around there on my motorbike when I used to ride a motorbike. And I would love to go again. I would like to go and see some of the sites. I'd like to get out to the Skelligs, which I never managed to achieve because of bad weather, although I camped out for a week waiting for the weather to change. I'd love to go and see Roscommon and Cave of the Cats and all of the sites linked to Bridget and the Morrigan. I'd like to go and visit Bridget's Well as well. So Ireland is on my radar yet again, and also working with these stunning decks. This deck, I think the artwork in this is absolutely gorgeous, and I think these two just completely sing together. Yeah, just wonderful. Truly gorgeous. So that is John Matthews Celtic Oracle with the Caitlin Matthews Celtic Wisdom Tarot. Of course, John Matthews and Caitlin Matthews are a tour de force when it comes to these Celtic decks and Celtic writing. And to pair with the Celtic Wisdom Tarot, I've got another Caitlin Matthews deck, the Ancestral Oracle of the Celts. The backs are just plain purple, and again, absolutely bang on in the culture and the myths and the stories that I grew up with, and that are such a huge part of my practice. Oh my gosh, we've got the Queen of Art with the Shepherdess, which is the Bridget card, and of course Bridget is to do with creativity as well. Just wonderful. I have worked with this deck more than the others purely because it came first into my practice. I love this Weaver card, I love it. And it's just so gorgeous to work with. It's wonderful. Both beautiful decks, both just feel like coming home for me. It's always been a part of my heritage. I grew up in the middle of nowhere in the Welsh mountains, miles from the nearest house, about 20 miles from the nearest town, and yeah, it just surrounded by fields and mountains and woods. And this kind of deck just, it feels like home to me, it really does. So these two look glorious together. So that is the Celtic Wisdom Tarot with Caitlin Matthews Ancestral Oracle of the Celts, both Caitlin Matthews decks. Pair with this Ancestral Oracle of the Celts, I am going to share a deck that is in this bag. Now this was sent to me by a lovely friend. I don't have the box for it, but I do have the book that goes with it. And of course, this is the glorious Arthurian Tarot. The stories of Arthur are part of the heritage of where I grew up, and I think these as well are beautiful. Now, all of these stories are becoming more and more important to me as I study my own UK magic and folklore. And this again is going to be another study I want to do in 2022. I know that there was a study group going online. I forget whose channel had it going. I so wanted to join it, but with being a single mom, often committing to any sort of course of study with a group at set times just isn't feasible for me. So this might need to be my own study in the coming months, but it's a beautiful deck. And I think these two again look beautiful together. Just wondering, now you can see it's in order. Let's get to some majors so you can see the majors. Here we go. So you can see it's not been used yet. and I can't wait. I literally can't wait to start using it. Should we put it the right way up? So that is the Arthurian tarot with the Ancestral Oracle of the Celts. Now, there was one deck when I went on a search for these Celtic decks that I thought I wouldn't find, and it's got to be probably my most awesome find ever. For £8, the original version of Courtney Davis's The Celtic Tarot Pack. So I couldn't believe it when I found this online secondhand. I thought the bidding would just become ridiculous, but nobody bid on it except me. £8 it came to me. This is the original printing. Even the reprint is out of print and goes for silly money. So to get this actual original with the journal and the book and then the tarot pack, oh, it's all there. I mean, it's a little bit battered, the packaging, but the cards are all completely fine. And it's just absolutely gorgeous. It's pips in the minors, but the pips are just so beautifully done. Look at them. But the majors are stunning. The card stock is soft as well, soft and gorgeous. It's so lovely, the energy in this deck. It's beautiful to hold. It's just a lovely, lovely deck. Like I said, I literally couldn't believe it when I tracked it down and when nobody bid against me. It was one of those moments where I just thought I must have bought a fake. I couldn't believe that I'd got so lucky. And when it arrived, I literally opened it in complete shock. Isn't it gorgeous? And I think any of these sort of Celtic, British, pagan decks just look stunning together. So this was an absolute find, and I just love it. I really love it. So like I say, these are probably some of my most beautiful decks in my collection. So that's the Celtic Tarot by Courtney Davis with the Arthurian Tarot. So what on earth can we put the Celtic Tarot by Courtney Davis with? Well, I picked this up really cheap, under £10 at my local metaphysical shop a few weeks ago. This is the Oracle of the Ancient Celts. It's illustrated by Maxine Miller, and it's absolutely beautiful. I think I paid £8 for this one as well. It was in their half price sale. They only had like 2 decks left in their sale table. The backs are absolutely gorgeous. Look at those backs, just stunning. And this literally has all the characters in here that just mean such a lot to me. So you've got the Green Man, and you've got the Oak and Holly King. And I think the detail in these, I mean, look at the detail in these. Aren't they fantastic? And that detail kind of holds its own with the detail that you find in this tarot. I just think it's completely stunning as a combination. I mean, look at that. You've got magical animals with the Magician, Ceridwen next to the Chariot. I mean, they do look absolutely stunning. The Morrigan, which is just the most beautiful card, with the Lovers. Brigid. I mean, these are, I couldn't believe it when I flicked through it. I literally couldn't believe it. And it's just so beautifully done. Like I say, these really are some of what I think are my most beautiful decks. So that is the, oh look at that with the horse. That is the wonderful Celtic tarot with the Oracle of the Ancient Celts. Let me show you inside the box for this. Isn't that lovely too? Now, I thought that this one might tag team quite nicely with Julie's deck, the lovely Julie Cushier Watts, her Ancestral Path Tarot. Now, I've picked this because I think it's the cups that is very, very linked again to this kind of mythology. I just thought that the two might work together. I think this deck just does conjure place as well, because the story's held within place, and it's beautifully done. I just think Julie is wonderful. Of course, I often chat with Julie in lives over at Lavender Moon. It's always lovely to see Julie in a live. Oh look, and the Dagda, I couldn't believe it when the Dagda was in here as well. And you can see this cup suit as well really does tie in with a very similar sense of place. And I just love them both. I like both of these together. I think both of these together look fantastic. Here is another suit. You can see that we've got Egypt in this one. So that's very, very different. Let me go, and then the circles is different again, but all very, very strongly linked to place. And I love them both. I think they work beautifully with each other. So let's move the Oracle of the Ancient Celts to one side. Let's try the Sacred Sites Oracle cards. So this is literally a deck designed to harness Genius Loci. Let me show you the backs. I've been showing you the backs. I'm not sure I've remembered to. So these are the backs in both of those. The backs look nice, don't they, together? So look, we've immediately gone in there with Newgrange, which is in Ireland, of course, which I've been to a number of times, and it's magical. Yeah, oh my gosh, these are going to work so nicely. Look at that. So you've got Stonehenge. So this is a new deck to me. I've literally bought it for my birthday, which is in a few days' time as I'm filming it, but I'm not quite sure when I'll upload this. But yeah, this is really designed to harness Genius Loci in a sense of place, and I just couldn't resist it when I found it. I think these two do both work together to kind of conjure that up. I love it. I absolutely love it. I will be doing walkthroughs and reviews on these. I've got so many decks that I haven't done any walkthroughs of or reviews of. I kind of get distracted by other things. I've got so many videos I want to make, it's ridiculous. But yeah, I like both of these together. I think both of these just put me into the card, into that sense of place. I mean, look at this. It's fabulous. Should we go with the Universal Celtic Tarot? These are the backs, so very Celtic with the backs. And let's just see what they look like together. Again, I think both decks, when I see them put together, it just makes me want to step into the card and explore place. It really does. Oh, I love this death card with the Morrigan. I just think that's fantastic. Look at this, just awesome. So the messages from this Genius Loci could tie in with the messages from the Celtic pack. I would need to explore it to see how it works, but I think visually, if you're just looking at these visually, they look absolutely amazing. Yeah, I love them together. Yeah, fantastic. And I'm pretty certain that these two are going to work because I know this deck really well. This is the Forest of Enchantment tarot deck, which is such a favourite. And again, this absolutely embodies a sense of place from the places I grew up and where I still wander today, near streams and in deep woods. Look at those together, absolutely gorgeous. It feels very much like the land that I grew up in and my culture and my heritage, and I really love it for that. So, you know, of course, if you do this tag, your decks might look totally different, and that's great. I would absolutely love to see your decks for this tag and whether there are differences. Oh, I love these two together as well. I think these are stunning together as well. Aren't we lucky to have such beautiful decks to work with? That Six of Boons card, I love it so much. This is such a gorgeous deck. Yeah, these are fabulous together. Like, look at that. That is literally the view that I grew up with out of my bedroom window, literally overlooking the Black Mountains and Hay on Wye. I love these two together. Yep, so that's a beautiful pair. The Universal Celtic Tarot with the Forest of Enchantment, which has these glorious backs. Now I'm going to see if this Forest of Enchantment Tarot pairs and tag teams with the Sacred Island Celtic Moon deck, because again, this deck is just takes me flying back to Ireland, to my wonderful days in Ireland. There are cards here of places that I've visited. Of course, you've got some moon cards as well. You've got Celtic goddesses in here as well. You've got Celtic sacred geometry. But then there are lots and lots of these sacred sites, places that I've actually been, which it's just such a beautiful reminder of some of these places that I've actually visited. I love those two. Look at that. And I said that I spent a week camping to try and get out to the Skelligs. This is the Skelligs. It's an island just off the coast where there is a monastery that you can go and visit, but it has to be clear water to land there. So this coastline here, I spent a week camping on, waiting for the weather to change, and every morning walking down to the boats, hoping that it was calm enough, and it never was. And in the end, I had to move on, having not visited, and I was really sad about it. So this deck just takes me back to some beautiful times that I had in Ireland with some lovely people who I just cared very deeply for, and it just makes me want to visit. I literally want to visit with this deck in my hand and go and walk all the cards. In fact, I think it needs to be a plan, and I think it needs to be a tarot adventure. And I love these decks together. So that is the Forest of Enchantment with the Celtic Moon Oracle. And with this Celtic Moon Oracle, I thought I would try Poppy Palin's Everyday Enchantment Tarot. Now, this isn't similar. It's not like your normal Celtic mythology. What it just feels really English to me. So these are the gorgeous backs, and these are the backs of the Celtic Moon Oracle. It's just got scenes that just really feel English. And I sometimes I wonder how the deck goes down anywhere else. Not all the cards. I mean, that doesn't necessarily look so English, but you know, things like this, it's literally what my life looked like growing up. I mean, this card in particular, with all the fighting and the Alsatian dogs, because I grew up with Alsatians too, and lots of fighting. So it is British, really. This is my childhood in a deck. I know I've heard other people say it as well, and I just thought the colours might look nice together, and I just couldn't leave this out, because it does really put me in a certain place with the memories of place. I mean, this looks like village fetes that I would go to every year, where you would grow turnips to win a prize and bake cakes and knit a toy for a prize. Every year you could sign up for what category you wanted to enter into, and it was a big build up for the village fete. And yeah, I mean, I grew up in a cottage called Hurstwood, and it was called Hurstwood because it backed onto a wood. And this is how I spent all of my childhood. Our only rule was come back before it's dark. And yeah, it just puts me into those places. So that's the everyday enchantment with the Celtic Moon. And then next is a deck that again I picked up secondhand with no box, but it came with the book. This is the Shining Tribe Tarot. So it's got the book, and the cards came in a little velvet bag like this. These are the backs. Now, in opposition to this one, this really doesn't have a British feel to it, but it does hold a very, very strong sense of place for me. I think place and pattern and this wonderful kind of hot deserty world really does permeate through the whole deck, and just makes you feel like you can step into the card to explore. And I think for visualization of closing your eyes and stepping into the card and the landscape and looking around and going for a walk, this is such a beautiful deck for it. I just love the images in here, and I just wondered whether the colour palette in these two decks would allow them to work together. A place that I know really well with a place that is very, very different to anywhere I've ever been, and I love them together. I think that it opens up a different place to wander off a familiar path. Yeah, I love them. So a very different combination, but one that you could really do some specific path working with and visualization with, and just closing your eyes and walking into a landscape. The Shining Tribe Tarot. Let's see if that will pair with my second Celtic Oracle. Now this one is by Jerry Maguire Thompson. Again, it was one that I was really lucky to pick up secondhand for just a few pounds, and yeah, all of these decks came to me really reasonably. The Shining Tribe Tarot as well, really reasonable. Now the backs on these are gorgeous, and I think again some of the style and the colours would mean that these work really nicely together. And yeah, they do. Look at these together. Yeah, just gorgeous. Just realising I have another 2 decks left, and I'm just wondering whether they are going to pair. It's always interesting to see if I can tag and get to the end of this with decks that work. These are lovely, aren't they? Together, these are gorgeous. Yeah, so I'm loving the look of those. That's definitely an option to work with as well. So that is the Celtic Oracle, but this one's by Jerry Maguire Thompson with the Shining Tribe Tarot. Okay, now I am going to try the Celtic Oracle with the Voices of the Trees Oracle. Now these are Oghams. These were sent to me as a gift by the lovely Queen of Set in this lovely sort of Crow Morrigan inspired zipper page. Runes are really on my one to study, and the first type is going to be the Celtic Ogham, because you can see, look, it's on here. These 2 decks are really going to help with that study in 2022. It's definitely going to be a study year for Celtic and British folklore and myths and stories. And what a rich, wonderful heritage that is to study. I love this deck. I have used this deck this year with the book. The book's fantastic that comes with it, but I just like to use it with a bit more understanding. So there just aren't enough hours in the day to study. Yeah, and I love them. I think these are fantastic together. Now, the last deck I'm going to share might seem a bit of a surprise or an oddball, the Genius Loki category. However, this Weaver's Oracle, which is a deck that I use to meditate with, is a deck that does lead me into landscape. It leads me into place. They are journey cards, and it comes with a travel guide, not a guidebook, and I think that says it all. The stories that go with each card give you a location and a landscape, and to sit with these cards, I have ended up going into landscape and place, and the place teaching me the lessons that the card has got for me. So it really is a Genius Loki centered deck, I think, although the cards picture the people, and of course the people take you by the hand and lead you into the landscape, but then I found that the landscape really takes over. I love this weaving next to this. This is my last deck for Genius Loki. It's one of my all-time favourite decks. I find it so magical, with such a strong voice. I've ended up drawing the landscapes and the visions that I get from this deck. I've never really paired it. I wonder whether I ever would try and pair it with something in a reading. Possibly, possibly not. But that's it, guys. I'm going to end there with this glorious Weaver's Oracle. I hope that you enjoyed that, and if you have any decks that lead you into landscape, or that brings back memories of place, that lets you walk into the card and look around, any decks that remind you of home, I would be so fascinated to see. So if you do a VR, just tag it with Genius Loki decks, tag your it, and join in and play. I'd love to see the decks in your collection too. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.